Hi, everybody, and welcome to Thriving LDS Singles. We're so happy to have you here. Today, we'll have Kay as your host, Kim as our co-host. Hi, Kim.
Hello.
And today, we're interviewing Raymond Johnson. Hi, Raymond.
Hi, sure nice to be with you.
Thank you. So, Raymond's wife died 17 months ago, and he's made it a bit of a study to study singles in the church. And so he's come up with some wonderful, interesting ideas, and we thought we'd talk to him more about that. So tell us a bit about your story, Raymond.
We all have a unique, remarkable story. I have two younger brothers. I'm the oldest, and tried to make sure they were aware of that every day of their lives. But
Yeah, I bet.
Rub that in.
I had read some great brothers. One's 3 years younger, and the other one was actually 10 years younger than me. I was exposed to the church when I was actually friends were very close. My mother was not a member. My dad was not active at the time. My mother had a difficult time having children. So long and short is she ends up having this story that she said she promised God that she would have the faith to teach her children, if she had them, God's plan and God's choice. And she'd do everything possible to make that happen. So what she did is she ended up, when I was born 5 years after their marriage, made sure that I had every opportunity to be exposed to every religion. So I was taken to the Judea schools. It was interesting to be involved where I was then baptized a Catholic, and then some other very interesting baby baptisms. She was Baptist, so I would go to their activities all the time. And then I had close friends living in Salt Lake that made it very possible to end up going to LDS activities. So the time came that I wanted to, I think it was 10 and a half years, 11 years of age. Long and short, we ended up having a wonderful experience going to a Baptist camp in Idaho. And in the process, they used to keep talking about going to Vespers. Vespers was something I'd never heard of before. And so that meant to go to the hillside, offer a prayer to Heavenly Father is what should you do? Where do you want to go? And in that experience, I had heard the name Joseph Smith before, and I decided I'll pray, just like they said. And I had this remarkable feeling, something had come over me, and it said, there's truth here. And so what occurred is that I ended up coming back to my mother. We were getting in the car driving home. And I told my mom, I said, well, I learned one thing. I had a great time, super fun experience. I'll do it again next year, but I want to join the LDS church. And she said, what happened? Something wrong? I said, no, not at all. They had this thing called Vespers. And I said, I just prayed about it. And I got an answer. It said, get baptized. She goes, are you sure? I was hoping you'd wait until you're about 16 or 17. I said, no, Mom, I'm going to get baptized. So anyway, she figured, well, let's calm this down, leave it alone. So I go to the home, and all of a sudden I was relentless. And I don't know where that came from. Not that I was a quiet child, but I was relentless. You could probably sense that. Kay.
Yeah, I was going to say.
So
I know where that came from.
Yeah. So it turns out about a year later, my dad was asked if he'd baptize me. Well, he had to change a little bit in his lifestyle. So he did, and I was baptized. Here I was 11 being baptized. So that took place. Then all of a sudden her heart changed and she started taking lessons. And she'd already beaten up every missionary that came through because she just knew the Bible, having been involved with the Methodist Church and the Baptist Church in Virginia. But all of a sudden her heart opened and she became thoroughly engaged in the work. And she was baptized along with my younger brother, who at the time was 8. And from then, they were very active and moved forward. And then my dad, he realized, well, if she's going to make such a huge change, I better take a look at it myself. So in essence, what she did is influence him. And when I was 15, had the opportunity to go to the temple in Salt Lake and be sealed to my parents. And what a remarkable experience. The rest is kind of history. And they made a marriage of 62 years.
What a wonderful conversion story. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
So obviously you got married.
I did. I dated every girl I could get to let me go out with her. And was involved in a lot of high school activities, so that sometimes made it possible. Was in the debate team, and then got involved with swimming and student government in high school. So it was just so much fun, and had some really great friends that worked out literally to my good. There's like 40 priests at the time when I was going on my mission to Sweden. And that was an interesting thing in the United States because we had only 2 allowed per ward. But providence prevailed, and myself and my very close friend John got calls. And then we were able to serve. I was a little older than the rest. I was about 20 when I went, but it was just super, and had a marvelous experience and a remarkable conversion story there. And then after I came back, continued my education, and then got a program. I was looking to go to law school, but then I realized in my mission that I needed to have something unique and different that I really wanted to do. So I found a school in Arizona, and I was accepted to come to Arizona. And so I did. Had a great experience. And then I attended a church dance on a Thursday night, which I told my fellows and friends, I'm not going to, because I've committed, I want out of this master's program in a year and I want to be done. So long and short is I go to this Thursday night dance, and they said, we won't stay too long. I said, this is great. So at least get me back. So I'm dancing, and these young girls are saying, oh, what high school do you go to? And I'm thinking, oh man, you have got to get me out of here. I'm through college and I've almost got the master's degree. And these are just puppies. I'm not interested in any of this. And then, Kim, all of a sudden, I look over and I see what is the most beautiful figure looking away. And I thought to myself, my heavens, I need to go introduce myself to her, shy as I am.
I can see you're shy, yeah.
So I went over there and I said, if the front looks as good as the back, I really would like to know her. So I went over there and I asked if I could cut in on this younger fellow, if I could dance with her. She turned around and it was just stunning. And so I was smitten. For the next 2 hours, she was mine. And then I had asked her, I said, well, when can we meet again? I said, you busy tomorrow? No, I got 2 dates or something. I thought, well, okay, that makes sense. How about Saturday? No, I got a couple of activities. What are you doing Sunday? She said, well, come on over to the house. You can meet my parents. And I said,
Wow.
that sounds great. So anyway, okay.
Sounds brave to me.
Yeah, well, I was smitten pretty well. So long and short was we ended up visiting with their mom and dad, and they seemed like nice folks. And then in 7 months, I'm married and got the master's degree a month before and a job a month after. And she and I were married right in between. So.
That's great. And so you had children?
Yes. In fact, we were married 47 years before she passed away. And it turns out that we have 2, a boy and a girl. And we had a miscarriage in between the 2. And then when she was 29, it turns out that she ended up having a hysterectomy. So we ended up basically throwing all of our attention into our children, the 2 we had. And we're just so fortunate to have had 2 beautiful kids, and they both have just turned out to be marvelous. And we've got 7 grandkids.
Very nice. So, and then of course we'll come to the end of the story, or the end of that bit of this love story is that, yeah, she got
Cade,
the chapter.
Oh, the
sorry.
chapter.
Yes, it's
Yes.
closing of that chapter. So 17 months ago, that would have been tough.
Probably the most difficult thing that I've ever gone through. Fortunately, I've had a mindset of thriving because my whole life has been directed towards what's the best use of my time now. And I would always look at it from that perspective because I figured, and I've totally believed this ever since I was young, that there's a purpose we're engaged in here while we're on the earth. And it's just been reaffirmed every time I've listened to prophetic utterance, every time I read scriptures, every time I participate in church activities. It's just a remarkable experience. And it just hits me right where it needs to be, the sweet spot, if you will. So what I decided to do is I would, every time I would go to the cemetery, I would get basically absolutely zero comfort. I would go there and cry. And I thought, this is ridiculous. This is just too much grief. It just is like a weight on myself, even though I think I'd exposed a lot of that grief because of the 4 years, because of the dementia. But what occurred was what she had for 4 years prior to her passing. But what I realized was that the temple makes a lot of sense. And I decided what I would do is take a look at the family search program and decided to effectively start doing sealings, because I loved hearing the actual words of our commitment. And in the process, there was in the environment, it was all of these lovely people willing to do the same thing. And there was a lot that were single, a lot that weren't, and all doing the same work for members of their families. And so every time I would come away from that, I would just feel uplifted. I felt I was thriving. Luann, my wife, she loved the temple, and we served there. I served as an ordinance worker there for 5 years in the Mesha Temple, and she did the same for 8 years. And in that process, we just really developed an appreciation for the ordinance, having memorized them. I'm very excited to let you know that, and I'm rather proud of this, and I think this, again, is saving me more than I'm doing. And it's not to say that I'm doing anything spectacular. It's just I have the time, and I made the effort, and I made the choice. And this is where I feel like I'm thriving, is 4,973 ordinances have been completed. And so I'm just thrilled. So it's pretty exciting stuff.
Is that this year or in
In
what amount of time?
17 months.
In 17 months.
Yeah.
In the months.
I made the commitment right after she passed away that this would be a good way to stay close to her.
That's nice. We hear a lot of struggle with people that spouses have passed away, about wishing, kind of pining, and wishing that they were with their loved one, their spouse. But Kay and I have talked about, well, there must be something that you are still supposed to do here, or there's a reason you're still here. And I love hearing that you made a conscious choice of, how am I going to make this something positive or fulfill whatever that purpose is. So tell me a little bit more about that, or what do you think your purpose is?
I think I'm still looking for that, because I had a marvelous career, great experiences. I'm still at the point where I look back and wish that I hadn't sold the business, because now I think to myself, dang, I could throw myself into that and really do have some fun times. But 14 years ago, it was the right time to move out, and so I did. And then in the last several years, I've been doing and engaging in limited liability corporations on other businesses that I do, primarily in marketing, and help other people move through their process. And that, I think, you have to have something. A man is best when he's actually chasing a dollar. And so on the one hand, I think that you have to have some conscious effort where you're growing in a perspective where you feel comfortable about it. And I think earning is a good thing. When I look back on Adam,
I think my experience is it doesn't have to be earning the dollar. It has to be feeling like you're fulfilling a purpose, like you feel like there's something that you're doing, achieving.
Okay, that's even better said. And thank you for the reevaluation. For me, it's been kind of a combination of both, because my career was investing for other people, and so that became, the real thing. So, and it was a great career, and I'm glad I did it, and grateful for the knowledge, the information, and it's helping me even now. But you hit it right on the head, and that is, I have found that by doing this frequency of temple activity, that there is much more joy in that type of service, because everybody is going to be a beneficiary of it who receives the ordinance done for them and by proxy. And that gives me great peace to know that at least I'm functioning at a higher level in my current years. So I just hope I have the good health in that. And I'm doing things, I'm lifting weights, I'm watching my diet, eating better. So I hope to live a long time.
Yes, it's all part of that living that thriving lifestyle, isn't it? It's like we've got to look after all those aspects of ourselves.
Absolutely.
But I think you've been doing something quite fun, which is sort of looking into the singles theme and learning about what the singles of the church look like. So tell us a bit about what you've discovered there.
Well, it's interesting. I had a bishop who was very sensitive to the situation. He and his wife came over many times during the issue of hand when my wife was still alive. And then about 3 or 4 months later, every 3 or 4 months, he would come in and see how things were going.
Nice bishop, good one.
Yeah, good bishop. Yeah, good bishop. And then what I tried to do is then kind of shared with him after about 8 months in. I said, it's interesting. Did you realize that this is what goes on in the singles? And I shared with him some of these thoughts, and he said, I had no idea. And so it just caught me off guard because I figured, well,
you should know.
You should know because
you should know.
You think I know there's other singles in the ward.
It's a common theme that we find that the married people just do not understand that there's 50% of the ward is single and they're living a different life. And
it's a different life. And I think the sisters, quite candidly, do a way, way better job of the communication, not only with each other, but the ministering, if you will, to each other than the brothers do. And the brothers get kind of caught up in the mindset of, and at least in our environment here in America, is that a man's a man, and therefore you've got to be buck it up, man, and you just suck it up and you just manage it. And I think a lot of people are wounded warriors, and I think they're walking around with all kinds of shrapnel that they've experienced, whether it's divorce or whether it's been the loss of a loved one through passing. And so I got involved with this program to try and do what they call a forum. And the forum is providing an opportunity just before a dance to have an hour to an hour and a half's worth of communication on topics. And so I just came up with a variety of unusual topics. One of it is dating and thinking celestial. And so we've had that in a 4-part series. And then I've just, unloaded with open up to the group and say, here's my thoughts for 30 minutes of stuff I've found. What do you think about it? And then we would have some commentary. And I've been amazed at how cathartic people are. They'll respond to a situation, and then all of a sudden, I won't say anything other than that, and they just keep going and going and going. And then somebody will pop in, and they'll keep going and going. And we've had some very interesting interconnections with people. And then we decided I said, this would be great. Why don't I be a moderator? And I'll get 2 brothers and 2 sisters that I know have very interesting stories, have them come up and give 5 minutes each on their story, open it up to the audience for Q&A. I'll take the questions and then ask them the ones that I thought were appropriate, and then just see who wants to field it. And it turned out to be a super success. We had 58 people attend it, and all they could do was rave about the opportunity to just hear their stories. And then I keep always telling them afterwards, I said, well, now you've learned something, go pay your $5 and go dance and find out if you can apply what you learned. And that's just been so funny.
Yeah.
And we're working on Kim to get her to apply what she learns from the one we've actually, it was so fun to get involved with her because she and I are going to do one. So it should be a lot of fun.
Oh, you're doing it, Kim?
I don't know about the dance part, but I'm going to do the forum part with Ray. We are going to have a drag me to the dance.
Yes.
I'm sure you're going to get dragged to the dance.
We're going to have a lot of fun. Any way you cut it.
But the whole concept of having that open forum discussion and people contributing their own ideas and opinions seems to have really built a good sense of community. And
it's been a great base. We've had anywhere, the lowest outcome we had was 42, and that was the night of the opening Olympics in Paris.
Oh.
So I thought we had some pretty good competition for us to get 42.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we've had north of 50 at each one of the 4 we've held. And it's been very easy to promote. We have a lady in our, general area. And what she does is she does a marvelous job of keeping the activity information out. And she hands it out at every one of the firesides. And so there's usually 3 firesides a month. she hands that out at every one. And so
3 a month. We get one every 2 months.
He's jealous.
yeah, we're very fortunate.
And again, it's because there's some very active singles that want to see things happening. And I think we've interviewed some of those. They're very go get them.
Yeah.
But it is like, I think you've discovered it, and what I discovered it too, was that the singles make a family. They make the group, and they support each other.
Yeah, that's a really good observation, because I know we also have kind of subgroups that happen. You have widowers group, and then you have other types of groups. The way I see it, though, is sometimes the widower groups tend to want to isolate because they have a unique experience. And, loss is loss, the way I see it. And so I totally don't agree with that, because I figure everybody, if you have an issue, you've lost something. And therefore, let's regain whatever value you can and make it a fun and exciting experience. And personally, I love to dance, and it was one of the things my wife and I love to do.
Kim.
Yeah,
I'm an anomaly.
No, you're in trouble, I think. So just like this is a tough question for you, and we haven't prepared you on this one, but a lot of women find that men who are widowed don't want to date other women who have been widowed because of the sealing stuff. So what's your thoughts on all that? Have you heard that problem?
Oh yeah, I've heard this before. In fact, every time I will bring some of this stuff up in the forums we've had, and I will always get the same guy comes up, but there are new ones that'll come up as well and say, well, I hadn't thought about that. Or I think that's what's holding me back. They will state that. And I feel kind of sad, because I think we presume we really know what Doctrine and Covenants 132 says. And I think it says some marvelous things in there, but it's left for definition. And it's prophetic definition that we would use to really understand that. And I don't think we have that clearly demarked or
nobody really knows.
They really don't know. And so I think the perception is that by doing that, you short circuit your eternity by making that type of choice. And yet there are men who certainly have made those concerns, and I think they missed the point. I think they totally missed the point. But I know you're right. Okay, they're out there, and that statement is alive and well and prospering, I might add. And not that it's right, but it's certainly around. And I don't know how one responds to that, other than perhaps just the way I shared those thoughts. It's perspective, but I think the biggest thing is we just don't know what all this is hinged on. We have no clue. We have an idea of what we're asked to do, but when it comes down to being invited and following through on those things, the blessing level could be any number of things out of that, any number of things. And we don't even have good examples from the pioneer days that really help us. We really don't. So we don't know.
Well, we're definitely forging a new path with the way things work currently.
My question is,
why?
You made a good point earlier about the fact that 52%, we were told in I believe it was the April 23rd conference, 2023 conference, that 52% of the church are single. I keep thinking to myself, well, what does the Lord want to do with that 52%? And the question at hand is, I don't know, but is it some sort of thing that is coming up that we will be asked to do? Being single, the beautiful thing about that is you're pretty transient. You can move pretty fast if you have to, and you don't have any weight or anchor that's holding down any decision you would need to make, other than children or grandchildren that can sometimes be a factor in your decisions. Probably should be. But it's going to be interesting to see how that pales out. So
It's
just
an interesting perspective I haven't thought of yet.
Yeah, just give you another thought on that. Just I hadn't thought of it either, but I think
because you're absolutely right. But yeah, sort of what else do you reckon? And as you said, we're making the community, and I think where there's active leaders in the singles community, it really helps to make a real community, and possibly doing better. Maybe this might be a bit controversial, but doing better than maybe the mainstream church is doing at sort of supporting each other and looking after each other.
that could well be. I do know that for a single person, that the added value and the strength by listening to the ordinances.
Yeah, as singles, we're all talking about going to the temple. I think there's a bit of a misnomer that the temple's sort of for married couples, or
That's a misnomer. You're right. In fact, it's interesting. Again, we're very fortunate because of the activity of some of our singles. There's two people I know specifically who have actually identified the first Friday of each month as a temple day. And then they follow that with a social, of course. You got to have a social. And by so doing, we fill up an entire session. And the temple has also told us that if you fill up a room and more people want to come in, we will open up another session right afterwards. Even though it's a 7 o'clock session, which for us is the last one, they'll open up one at 7:30. So those people just come and get the ice cream a little later.
So it sounds good. Go, Kim.
I was just wondering, so you've made a conscious decision to start dating, is that right?
It's interesting. I was emotionally unavailable. That's been my answer for just about everything. But I have had 3 dates in the last 5 months.
Whoa!
So I'm
sticking his toe in the water.
Sticking my toe in the water, yes. Yeah, and it's been fun. And so for whatever reason, it goes back to attraction.
Was the last forum on attraction?
It was. In fact, we did talk about the forum that we just had here about, I guess, what would it be now? Almost a week ago.
Yeah, about a week. Salt Lake.
Yeah, be about a week ago. Was actually on the issue of attraction and what attracts a male and what attracts a female. And I wish I'd brought some of my material. That would have been kind of fun to maybe go over. But it's pretty typical of men, still look at hair, they look at figure, they look at eyes, they listen to voice. There you go. That's what I like.
Work it, Kay.
Yeah, work it. That's right. So appearance for men is pretty visual. And then for the sisters, it's
that's right. So the 18-year-old you and the 70-year-old you are not that much different, huh?
Well, unfortunately, there's considerable difference because experience has created a whole different set of questions that the 25-year-old guy, 26-year-old guy who did get married then, he would have never even brought those questions up. But now it's a question of, well, do you do a prenup? Does that show faith or does it not? Or is it done in a way that it protects not me only, but her only? That's a good instinct, I think, to be aware of. The other thing is in terms of families.
Because there's children now, big adult children involved.
They're adult children, and they have issues that come up. One of the fellows, again, at one of these forums had approached me and says, it's interesting. I never thought about this until my friend got married, and he said he was telling me that he was in dating this lady and then married her, that there was so many, she had 5 or 6 children. He said that what he was finding was that he didn't realize how much activity he was going to be having with those children. I think he expected more with the grandchildren, but he's found there's been quite a bit of activity that he's engaged with the children. And so that created some total different perspective about my friend who's now looking for, well, maybe it's good to have a few children, or maybe I love children, therefore I should have lots of them. It's just something you never would have thought about in your 18, 19, 20, 21 years old situation.
Well, not only that, I was just talking to somebody whose daughter really disagreed with her mother's choice for a remarriage and basically interfered with it and put a kibosh on it. And the mom didn't date him anymore. So
And that's a big factor too.
Influences, yeah.
I totally agree. I think that's going to be another big factor is there anything in the person's background that creates issues? Or is it just a personality situation? So the question at hand is just how much are you going to have your children dictate your life? Very interesting.
How much influence.
Yeah, I've heard of the children who were very upset, especially when the mother died and then the father remarried like just a year or so later, and like very angry at sort of this woman that came along and took their mother's place. And these are 30-year-old children. This is not, this isn't the 14-year-old teenager that you sort of expect that from.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And
yet I sometimes wonder, most of us feel like we're 23 anyway. And the problem is we need to mindset wise catch up to what we really are age wise when we start thinking rather than think like we're 23 again on these issues that do pop up. Because I think that's an interesting feature you pointed out is, what do you do with the adult kids? And I hear some of the stories and I'm a little nervous when I hear what happens, drug related situations, had to get her out of jail last week. And you think, wow, that's a story.
Yeah, you are getting a whole family, not just one person.
That's true.
I hadn't thought of that.
And most of us don't. That's what's interesting. So that's what's fun about these podcasts where you actually address or working to find out what's going on out there. I think that's such a valuable thing you do, both of you.
Yeah.
That's what we thought. Yeah, that we needed that discussion.
Yeah.
We needed those discussions and the things that to bring all this out in the open to discuss it, because it is a very different church when we're single. And I guess I've experienced the church as a married couple, and I repent every day because I was so unaware of the singles in the ward. And so, it was when the kids were young and you're with the other families that are active and young children and, you're just living your life.
Right.
And then like looking back now, I'm thinking, oh, there was that widow there and there was that divorced woman there and that, oh, I didn't spend any time with them or think about them or, so I seriously regret that now because I can see the need for them to feel part of the church and I didn't do it.
Hey, I wouldn't be too hard on yourself because I think in Ecclesiastes, it talks about what has been turned into a beautiful song. There's a time and a season. And I always tell my daughter, I said, yes, I am going to the temple quite a bit, but if I had a job and your mom was still alive, pretty good chance we would be doing a lot more social. I'd be doing a lot more business stuff, and I wouldn't have made the time for this. But now I'm making the time because I don't have the obligations that she has with two small boys, one 6 and the other one 18 months. I said, you're exactly where you need to be. And providing support for your husband and you, and you're in the busiest part of your life, but probably one of the best parts of your life. So enjoy the moment. And that's my counsel to her. And because she's always concerned, Dad, I need to be going to the temple more. I said, well, I understand that. Yes, you should. But look at your circumstance and look at Ecclesiastes. There's a time
that's what
and there's a place.
The advice always from the prophet is according to your circumstances. Go as often as you can according to your circumstances. And, obviously for some people, the temple's a long way away. So in that circumstance, sometimes it is the young children, like you really can't go very often when you get young. You got to find babysitters and, all those sorts of things.
Very good point.
Whereas, our circumstances are, my temple's 15 minutes away and I have lots of free time.
And that makes the other side of it. Is it a sin of omission or a sin of commission? So sometimes it's the omission when we're doing. So I don't know. I just know that the blessings are a benefit and that it's mentally saving me from dwelling on a loss that was, and a person who was so pertinent to everything I did. And I used to love the fact that I would have an opinion. As you can imagine, I have all kinds of opinions. And what was amazing was that sometimes I'd always try and make a point to say, Luann, what are your thoughts on this? And I would say every time she had one, it would almost knock me down, because I think I would have never, ever thought of that perception just based on a guy's brain. And I said, that's a wonderful insight. And I was so appreciative to get that perspective. So the idea of man and woman is significant because of the way we are patterned and designed. And that I miss, and I truly do. And so those are the kind of things that create an intimacy for me that I'm looking for, because I'd like that so much. I'd like to have it again.
Yeah, absolutely. It is.
Yeah.
It's
But it would
great.
but it would be different.
In the meantime, you're stuck with us, but
which is absolutely delightful.
And it is. It's
Good
because
answer.
it is because as the singles making friendship groups. So it doesn't have to be dating groups. It can be friendship groups that are giving those, but we can still have those discussions, and we can still have that perspectives and opportunities to socialize and play games or go to dances or eat.
I think, Kay, I think you hit it on the head too. It's so important to maintain some degree of sociality. And the fact that we all are basically wounded warriors in some form, that is our common bond. And because of that, there's empathy, should be. There is awareness. There should be more education. We should all do. And then it's just a matter of application to ourselves and how and what and when we would be motivated to do more. Because I think the service in the church now can take on a whole different perspective. Sometimes, and you pointed out right on, is that little lady that was sitting there in the church that you were dealing with your lovely little kids and running all over the place. Now, if I was sitting in your same church, it would be up to me, in my opinion, to go over and say hi, or make sure that everybody within your circle of mental contact, because I think sometimes the Spirit even says, why don't you just go over and say hi to that person? And I think sometimes that is just enough encouragement that would help that person out for one day, or maybe even longer. But I think the key is that they realize they've been recognized. And so I think that I try and do that as often as I'm, I guess, prompted to. And I think that helps me. And I always felt that way when people, and again, it was kind of the thing I learned in the mission field. We had a marvelous president who said, look, everybody comes to this church because it's a hospital. And whether you come in with cancer or a cold, we have a solution. But the key is you have to engage in the process. You have to be part of that. And to really get out of this church what you need to give your effort. Because President Nelson always says, the Lord loves effort. And so I think.
So would that be your advice? Because, like I think of my ward, and there's a couple of single men, and they tend to sit by themselves. They tend to be by themselves. So the women tend to all sit together. You have a row of single women all sitting together, but these four single guys are sitting there. And I went and sat by one day, and then I thought, oh, are people going to talk? Are people going to does that mean something?
Is he going to get nervous?
But you see these single men sitting by themselves, and they don't tend to be part of very much. So what's your advice? They don't smile at all.
They don't. I mean, just like they're just into themselves, and they're just putting in the time. And I think that's sad. I think every one of us who has the breath of life needs to make a personal effort to get it outside of ourselves, because I'm positive that is what the Savior did. And if you've watched The Chosen, which I think is one of these most remarkable shows, because it personalizes Christ and his followers in such a way you think, dang, that's a thought that I would have had. And here, this is back in the, 2000 years ago. And that kind of perspective, life isn't all that different except for the conveniences. And so I think the important thing is that I think Heavenly Father's going to say, well, did you reach out? Did you see somebody in need, and did you say something? Or did you, I think we have one of the most beautiful songs in the church. Did you do something good today? I forget the name of it, but it's that particular one.
Do something good in the world today. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, that's the theme, I think. And I think that should be probably our ongoing banner that Moroni held up for life and liberty. We should be doing that for our brothers and our sisters, is to hold that banner up. Have I done any good in the world today? Have I helped anybody in need? Have I cheered up the sad? I think that's going to be something we should be watching. And I think that's an important thing. Because it only takes a second to do that.
It only takes a second. That's right. Just say hi to someone.
Yeah.
So it's been wonderful talking with you today. I know that you've got lots more to say, so we'll probably get you back, because we really like to get that male perspective, because obviously we've only got our side of the thing.
Understood. Well, I'd even like to hear more of your side, because it's quiet around where I'm at.
And that's what we try to do. We're trying to get male and female. And then that's the point of sort of being on the other side of the world, is that I've got different experiences because the church is so much smaller and it's different. So, thank you very much for being a part of it.
Thank you and Kim for the invitation. And I have thoroughly enjoyed being with you. I think you're doing a marvelous service, and can only encourage you to continue it.
Thank you. You'll have to help us. We'll have you back. You can continue.
I'd be delighted to come back.
Give us more.
But thank you, Ray. Thank you, Kim. And we'll see you all again next week.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.